Hello and welcome back to the 816 660 podcast. I'm your host, Joe Ramos, and today we will have highlights, updates, and more on the Chiefs when we come back. In today's episode, we'll be going over the past week and the past matchup we had against the Las Vegas Raiders. It was a very exciting football game, a lot of controversial calls, not a lot of records, but records being broken, some injuries that happened that may cost teams down the way. Just very exciting football and a really good football game. Refs weren't the best, but we'll get into that more later. The Chiefs had a very slow start to the football game. It was a quick stop that we had on the Raiders, and then it was a quick 3-and-out. And Josh Jacobs continued his dominance from last game, rolling over us, steamrolling, and he got going early, which was a tough sign knowing that the Chiefs have a very good run defense. And to see us get gashed like that, it was kind of a wake-up that they really needed to do something. With Josh's success on their second drive, he was able to set the Raiders up on a short down. And out of nowhere, Derek Carr sings a bomb downfield to Davante Adams. And who's in coverage? Rashad Fenton. He has been struggling this year. His plays haven't been made like he was making last year with his typical finger wag. He got absolutely burned on the first play, and that was something that in Kansas City you didn't want to see, especially why was he on Davante Adams when we have guys like Jalen Watson, even Joshua Williams, another rookie, or our best possible corner in L'Jarius Sneed. But yeah, like I said, Rashad Fenton on possibly the best wide receiver in the National Football League. Top three, top two for sure. I don't know why you would do that in a guy like that, but that's something that they figured out as the game went on. With the Chiefs' slow start, they were down 7-0, and we had Mahomes trying to bring it back, get the running going. And as he runs, he takes off a run for 16 yards, which I hate it when he runs because of his knee a couple years ago. Things like that. Even when we have design runs for him, it's really scary, especially in a $500 million quarterback. I mean, you can ask anybody in football, just not even a Chiefs fan. It's kind of scary to see a guy that's not known for running and more for his arm. But you know what? It works out. Sometimes it works because sometimes the defense doesn't end up planning for that. Coming up short on this drive, we set up Matthew Wright for a field goal in his second game with the Chiefs, and he pushed it right. It would have been nice to come out of that drive that actually seemed somewhat dominant for the second drive of the game, and we came out with absolutely nothing. As the Chiefs take that drive and come out scoreless, here comes Josh Jacobs again, continue to dominating down the field, just running all over us. Moves up and down the field so very well, and he just freaking drives the field in, and he puts the Chiefs down 14-0 to start the game. Again, an AFC West divisional opponent coming into Arrowhead and silencing the crowd in Arrowhead, which isn't something that's normal. Typically, no matter what, 14-0, 21-0, 24-0, Arrowhead's still rocking. And this early in the year, I was surprised for the stadium to be very quiet. You could hear a pin drop in that thing. And Raiders fans were going crazy. They were looking at the crowd, telling everybody, shh. And then just watch. Stay continued into this football game. Another quick 3-and-out for the Chiefs, and here comes dominant Josh Jacobs, putting our defense in trouble. One of the top rushing defenses in the league is looking like laying over like a bag of milk. Not looking good. Just something that's really disappointing in how well they've played this year so far. And also, if you've noticed, the past couple weeks with Willie Gay being out on his just aggressive playing and his ball skills and tackling skills, it's hard to have him out, but the guy in Darius Harris has stepped up very well. Nothing was looking very good for us, but the Chiefs were able to hold him to a field goal. So that was good to see. 17-0. You start to worry a little bit. On our next drive, it comes to 2nd and 17, where running back Jerick McKinnon takes an absolute beautiful run. I believe it was anywhere from 25 to 30 yards down the field, looking very good. He did not want to get tackled, running through people. And with a guy that's not absolutely huge, but he's quick and he's got quick feet, he was not coming down easy. And that was really impressive to see on that drive. Mahomes dialing up a dot. I mean, are you even surprised? And who does it go to? Trav? No, it goes into another guy that we had added this offseason in Marquez Valdez-Scantling, an absolute dot down the middle of the field. Different type of arm angle. I believe it was 3rd and 9, and just little arm swag, little right here, catch it right in between a couple defenders. First down conversion, good for a Kansas City Chiefs. You guys got the rest. Can you guys take a guess at who scored the first touchdown for the Kansas City Chiefs this week? None other than 87 and Travis Kelce, as Pat found him in the end zone. Absolute dot, dialing up, got Arrowhead rocking. It started getting loud and louder and louder, and this is when the Raiders started getting bothered by that Arrowhead crowd. And they're able to limit the damage. Bend, don't break mentality. They hold the Raiders to a field goal. Now the Raiders are up 20-7 with a Daniel Carlson field goal. I believe is about 53 yards out. That guy is nails, though. He's been nails basically all of his career for the Raiders. A wizard with the leg. One of the best kickers in the football league behind, I believe, Justin Tucker and Harrison Butker when he's healthy. But it's like those three guys on a tier and kind of everybody else that fills in between. But again, I will say Matthew Wright has stepped up the past couple weeks. Mahomes was able to get Matthew Wright into field goal range with only a couple seconds left on the clock. And with a face mask on Jerick McKinnon, we were able to get that 15 yards, and we got him within a 59-yard field goal, breaking Harrison Butker's 58-yard record in franchise history. A 59-yard field goal is something that I've never even seen in person, and when he put it up, I was seeing it go through the post. I'm like, if that's got the leg, that's there, and then Arrowhead erupted, especially talking about the controversial call that got the Raiders to get their 20 points in the Chris Jones sack with roughing the passer. But for that to happen and then the Chiefs to get some momentum back with that big field goal to end the half was something that was good for their momentum, good for their morale, and it had Arrowhead fired up. But before we get into that second half, I want to talk about that controversial call. You want to talk about Chiefs fans being really, really pissed off. That was the loudest in person I've ever heard it. Like crazier than that 100-yard pick six that Jalen Watson had earlier in the year. I'm sure you could all hear it in the broadcast with how loud and clear everything was through the TV. I'm not going to say what they were saying, try to stay a little friendly here, but everybody was upset. People were a little pissed off, and it was just funny to see. The refs they seemed a little frazzled. Voices were cracking over the intercom. Basically, it came to the point anytime the ref would speak during the game, you couldn't even hear him because of the boos and the other things that people were saying to the ref was kind of hilarious. And just to see felt like the refs were folding under pressure, as I would say. Coming out to start the second half, here comes the Chiefs dominating again. They come out and play very well. MVS has a very good catch to start the drive, and Juju setting us up for another possible touchdown. And who do we find other than another reliable target in 87, Travis Kelce touchdown. So he has two on the day. We're like, all right, yeah, that's probably all he's going to have. No, just you wait. You stay tuned in. He's a freaking beast. Best in the league. I've seen people tweeting he's better than what Gronk was, which his career is over. His receptions may not be the same, but overall, like in talent-wise, I think he may be one of the best tight ends to play the game, if not the best. His skill is sometimes unmatched. His signature spin move, I love to see it. Brings some of the best energy into football and one of the most exciting guys to watch play football. With a good defense carrying over into the second half, not letting the Raiders get anything more than anything on their first drive. They turned it over on downs, punted it to us, and Mahomes was finding Juju. 13 yards downfield, completion. Are we at the goal line again? Again? That quick? Who else does he find? None other than Travis Kelce again. Kelce stumbled, coming back to his left, my right, cuts back across field, makes a catch from Pat, stiff arm, touchdown. Freak of nature. He showed that he was absolutely jacked. Like me. No, not really. I'm not jacked, but Trav really put on a show last night, and it was just unfathomable. My favorite word to say on here, unfathomable. And it doesn't even sound right coming out of my mouth because I don't even know if I can say it correctly. The Chiefs had taken a lead, and that turned into the Raiders being off all third quarter. Chiefs were dominant. the whole third quarter. That's when everything started to turn around, and Arrowhead got louder and louder and louder, ear-shattering noise. Don't bring young kids to the game, or if you do, bring the earmuffs because that was rocking. Absolutely amazing. You love to see it, especially with stopping the Raiders. Raider week. We love it. With minutes ticking down in the third quarter, Josh Jacobs found a wide open lane and took it inside of the Kansas City 30. They look like they're about to score again. And on the next play, the guy filling in for Willie Gay, Darius Harris, number 47, absolutely smokes through the line and puts Derek Carr on the ground for a sack with no flag, which I was surprised because put his whole body weight on him, but no flag. Controversial stuff that was talking about all game. Fans were giving the ref stuff the whole game. It was awesome to see a young guy like that step up when one of our leaders is out. On the next play, I believe it turned into the fourth quarter, and Derek Carr slings it down to Mac Hollins in the end zone. Almost picked off by Juan Thornhill, but it comes up incomplete, and they ended up settling for a field goal, getting the score to 23-24 Chiefs. With Mahomes' first drive in the fourth, he was able to drive down the field, but we get held to a field goal, or what we thought was going to be a field goal attempt that missed right. But wait a second. Hold on. There was a holding call on the defense on a field goal try. Did he try to shoot the gap and he got called for holding on defense for a field goal try? So that gave the Chiefs an automatic first down, and none other than anybody else, Travis Kelce, gets his fourth tutty on the game. 4. Patrick Mahomes was there. He's here. He's that guy in Kansas City. Fourth tutty to Travis Kelce on the game. And they didn't talk about this. Patrick Mahomes, that fourth tutty, ended up passing Troy Aikman on the 75th all-time career list for passing touchdowns, which an impressive stat, but we'll talk more about that later. Raiders with the game on the line, driving down the field with 7 minutes left in the game. Here comes Josh Jacobs again, getting chunk after chunk after chunk, burning and gashing that run defense that we all thought was going to be very good. Now, Carr, out of his back pocket, pulled some Mahomes magic with a little flick. But the thing is, his wasn't as magical because his came more in panic, where typically with Pat, that's the stuff you see that are you even amazed anymore? But they were able to convert. So the Chiefs had gotten the Raiders to 3rd and 6. And out of nowhere, here comes Derek Carr slinging it down for another deep touchdown to Davante Adams. Again, a 46-yard tutty. But this time it wasn't Fenton. Brian Cook had over-the-top help from Juan Thornhill, and it seemed like he had got beat as well. That was not a good sight to see now that the Raiders were within a couple points, 29. They go for 2, and they don't get it. With 4:35 left in the game, you go for 2 or you go for the tie. See, I've seen a lot of things on a lot of broadcasts on Twitter and all these things. People are like, kick the field goal. You go for the tie. You have 4.5 minutes left in the game. You have 3 timeouts. Why risk it? Chiefs get the ball on the next drive. They seem to be gashing the Raiders very well. The runs, the passes, the quick screens to Sky Moore, he seemed like we were able to get him working in that offense, even though he only had 2 receptions for 15 to 18 yards. They were driving well. They were doing things well. And then it came to 3rd and 3. The Raiders needed a big stop. And what do? We throw it 25 yards downfield to a McCole Hardman where it ends up being incomplete. Why not take a rush opportunity to try to make the Raiders waste their last timeout rather than them having the 2-minute warning still and a timeout left? So it's basically 2 timeouts for them to stop the clock. So there's 2:15 left, leaving them with a timeout and still the 2-minute warning to stop the clock. And it comes to a 3rd and 1. Derek Carr looks like he throws a dot to Davante Adams, but as he goes for a toe drag here, it looked like it was a catch from the stands. But as they replayed it, you could see that Davante Adams had actually not had full possession. The toe drag made it look like he did, but he ended up bobbling it and didn't have full possession until he was out of bounds, which was huge for the Chiefs because now it is 4th and 1. And what do you expect on a 4th and 1? A run from Josh Jacobs. That's what you would think, right? No, they end up going deep. And Hunter Renfrow and Davante Adams run into each other, and that ends the football game with 40 seconds left. The Chiefs come out, kneel the football, and game over. You want to talk about some way to end the football game that had been a crazy, controversial night? Just Blasphemy. It was an awesome game, but also here with this awesome game, there was some controversial calls. Yeah, there were some both ways, but it seemed like there was just some things that went more the Raiders' way. Yeah, there was more flags against the Raiders in the game, but the more game-changing calls were against the Chiefs. And I always say, if you're going to be bad in the referee department, I think you may as well just be bad both ways. And Carl Jeffers, it was just not a great call. He stuck with the call even in a post-game interview. Very surprising to see. Just controversial. But yes, the Chiefs pulled out a victory at home. Arrowhead rocked after that. Fireworks shooting off. Tomahawk chop. Awesome. Key players in the game, obviously Pat. Kels had one of the weirdest stat lines I had ever seen in football. Juju made some big plays. MVS, our leading receiver on the day, made some big plays for us. 6 receptions on 90 some odd yards. Nick Bolton played very well. Justin Reed stepped up when he needed to. Took a hit from Josh Jacobs, which saved the play. But he said on Twitter that he'd rather take the blow, give his defense another opportunity for at least one more play on the drive rather than letting Josh Jacobs walk in the end zone from 30 yards out. So back to Travis's stat line here. 7 receptions, 25 yards, 4 touchdowns. Typically, when a guy has 4 touchdowns, you would think they'd have 100 to 150 yards receiving. No, he had less receiving yards than a lot of people that had played in this game. And our quarterback, Patrick Mahomes, was his normal self after he got hot. He was 29 for 43 on a 67% completion percentage, 292 yards passing, 4 touchdown passes, passing Troy Aikman, which was impressive. That's something they didn't mention in the game, like I had said before. Just very, very impressive. But also, Troy Aikman did play in a different era when it was run heavy. He played with Emmitt Smith as his running back, and they also had that awesome offensive line. But you also got to give credit where credit is due for Patrick passing somebody that quick. When Troy played in 165 games with 165 touchdown passes, where Patrick Mahomes had played in 68. Also, I believe early in the game, the O-line was getting pressed from the right side. Andrew Wiley seemed like he had been struggling a little bit because of the beast on the Raiders' D-line and Max Crosby. Max Crosby was getting the push in the backfield. He was getting back there very quick, and he finished with 2 sacks on the day. But that left side seemed to be doing very well with Joe Thuney and Creed Humphrey with 100-plus combined snaps on the day with no pressures, no QB hits, no sacks given up from those two. And they've been consistent. They've been really good. It's good to see that from a young guy and a seasoned veteran in Joe Thuney. That left side of the line is looking strong. Orlando Brown, there's room to improve there, but I believe he's starting on his way up. On to our next opponent in the Buffalo Bills. I'm going to say this right now. If we start the game how we started it this past week against the Buffalo Bills and we go down 17-0, I would not expect the outcome that we had against the Raiders. Josh Allen, Stephon Diggs, Gabe Davis are a dynamic threat in that trio. They are very strong, and they won't lay down. They are very good, and their defense is very good. I will say their defense is a little banged up, so if we're going to have to beat them, we're going to have to exploit that defense and beat them downfield. Maybe some quick slants, more RPOs, things like that. But if we're going to beat the Bills, we have to start hot and stay hot, not let off the gas pedal. But it seems that when we play really good football teams and Bills and Bucks and things like that, we play very well. Not saying that the Raiders aren't, because they are a very good football team. In 4 of their losses, they have lost by less than 1 possession. So the Raiders are a good football team. But back to the Bills, we're going to have to start hot, stay hot the whole game, and dominate in all 3 facets of the game: offense, defense, and special teams. Is Harrison Butker going to be back in special teams? I don't know. He is listed as questionable, not listed as out. As you know, he has been dealing with a high ankle sprain on his plant leg. So hopefully he will be back. And as a Chiefs fan that has had an accurate kicker the last few years, last like 5 years, I believe, you really can't take that guy for granted. He's got a really strong leg, very accurate, good guy to watch kicking when you know the game's on the line, tied or down by 3 with 13 seconds. Down in the game, 13 seconds left on the clock. Who other than Pat Mahomes and Harrison Butker to get you in the overtime. Shout out Bills. Very excited for the matchup against the Buffalo Bills. Ready to have Harrison back. If he's not back, Matthew Wright's been doing the job very well. It is at Gihau Field at Arrowhead Stadium at 3:25 on Sunday, so not a 12 o'clock kickoff, not a night game, something to be ready for. We love day games, better vision. Chiefs are going to be rolling. Score prediction for next week, I'm going to call a shootout because they're two high-powered offenses. I'm going to say 34-31. Definitely seems like something that both offenses are able to do. Thank you for tuning in. That'll wrap up this week's episode from the 816 to 660 podcast. I'm your host, Joe Ramos, and next week we'll be back with highlights from the Chiefs and the preview of the next week. Until next time, deuces.